Jordan, thanks so much for joining me today on the Surf Nation Football Focus Chat. Excited to have you on finally.
Yeah, Gary's in. I like it. I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me.
Obviously, MatchFit, phenomenal reputation. I want to see in this conversation if we can get a little insight into the culture. Fascinated by the culture, the landscape, culture of the club. I went to the website, had a look, and you have a phrase that jumped out to me on your website about your mission, and that is the player is the main character, and we cater to their strengths. And I thought, yes, okay, that's a strengths-based approach. I wonder how deep that goes in terms of your first day at the club. Day one, is there a purpose at every single level at overlooking weaknesses and going at strengths, or how's that in action?
Yes, there is. It's something you continue to have to work on every day. It's easy, and I think we're all guilty of it, where you overlook some of that and you're fascinated by the weakness, right? Because there's the part of you just wants to correct it right away. But it's about finding what it is that each player can bring, and it's hard because you only see them twice a week or 3 times a week, sometimes with the younger teams. So it's kind of a little bit harder to put into practice than if you're in school in a classroom, or you're with a team like a college team or professional team every day. But it's really about, at the younger ages, developing their love of the game. And if you're constantly correcting and changing, there's a bit of a disconnect and the enjoyment kind of goes away. And then as you get older, it's about finding the right fit for you as a player and really trying to get the players to recognize their own weaknesses, right? Understanding that we all have them, but we all have to, just like in life, right? Football, soccer is just like life. It's like, how do we best fit in to what's necessary to be successful? And it's, I think an easy out for all of us as coaches. And I remember, going into the classroom at 21 years of age as a history teacher in England. And I thought I could, cure the world. It's easy to go in there and say, all right, I can fix everything. It's not as easy to do it, right? And it's about molding players. And I think one of the things that we've been successful at is being able to adapt. We don't have the MatchFit way in terms of playing, right? Adapt to your team, adapt to your needs, adapt to your players. So yeah, I think that, again, it comes down to positive reinforcement, right? Make the players feel good about what they can do. They'll figure out what they're not so good at.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a great start. The piece there that you said about that introductory level, about the player falling in love with the game, and I think we do overlook that. Sometimes coaching and correction go hand in hand, and we don't really see how that can have a negative impact on a young player.
Right. Yeah, and part of it, to be honest, as well, when you become a father or a mother, right? You see the insecurity in the young people that you don't necessarily see when you're not. And recognizing that some people mask that a little bit and can handle it, and you're like, well, that kid can handle any kind of feedback. Well, externally maybe, but internally maybe not, right? And I like the psychology of the game, recognizing how people learn and the different ways. I remember it used to be how to differentiate your class, right? When I was teaching or when I first started to coach, differentiate, right? You've got 16 players. How are you going to make sure every player takes something positive out of the session? So I think that also helps, like, to set up your coaching to understand and recognize that I'm never going to have a session that every single player is going to be successful in. So how do I set it up where they can all feel they've gotten something out of the session? So yeah, no, it's, and at the younger, hey, let it be messy, right? When you're teaching the 4 and 5 and 6 year olds, let it be messy. Who cares? If they go away and they want to come back the next time and they love you as a coach, then you're doing your job.
I love it. Yes, really, really interesting. The piece on, again, like messy learning, and that's how it is, right? And as you know, and you get older and you get the kids and you have your own kids and you go through that experience, you're like, yeah, why did I think this was linear? But at the same time, when you're bringing in, I like what you said there about players having to adapt and adjust and keeping that moving and dynamic. But then when the parents come in, and obviously there's somewhat of a standard in place, even when they come in at younger age groups, I'm imagining. So now, how are you, the balance line between, be yourself, be free, but yet, this is MatchFit, there's high expectations when people come into the club, parents, coaches?
I think it's how you treat people and how you communicate with people, right? I was once asked what I felt like the biggest, most important thing I looked for in a coach, and I said it's their ability to communicate. Whether that be your expectation in a practice, your attention to detail. Everybody should be wearing, if we've got a practice shirt, everybody's wearing a practice shirt. If we start at 10 o'clock, we start at 10 o'clock. If we are supposed to collect all the equipment in, we collect it in quickly. We're all a part of the same group. I think those little standards, you can make them fun, right? Hey, I'm going to start timing you. How quickly can you collect the cones? And 30 seconds, that's our record. Next time, let's try to beat 30 seconds, right? You're teaching the kids something about accountability in a fun way. And then they don't even necessarily recognize that a couple of weeks in, you've got these standards, but it's just part of their fun, right? And then as you get older, it's about reinforcing those standards and getting them to understand that, we're here to learn, we're here to get better, but we're also here. Let's make sure we enjoy it. The part of your brain that kind of masks the things you don't like, it's because you've had a bad experience and it prevents you from learning. So I think that, like, when you've got a positive connection to what you're doing and the experience that you're or something that you're experiencing, you're much more likely to open up and receive that information, right? So I think there's certainly moments as coaches, we all have a moment where where it's not fun for our players, right? So sometimes it's take a step back, take a deep breath, remember what we're dealing with, right? And everybody comes into that training session with different experiences from their day as well. So, like, the human element, recognizing what we're there for. And I think one of the biggest things that we talk to our coaches about is, don't worry if your session goes off plan. It's okay. It's just one session. You'll be fine. So those are the things that kind of we look for those standards. Like, yeah, they need to be there. They need to be foundational, but they don't need to be, militaristic in the way you approach them.
That's very, very interesting. Almost implicit then, in terms of, like, bring it into a learning environment, make it fun, and then all of a sudden the players are conditioned to doing things in a certain way. It's interesting. Yeah, it's pretty good, that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, growing up in the 80s in the north of England, different world, wasn't it? I mean, but the standards were always set. My grandfather, my dad, they always set those standards in. You kind of, whether it's going down the mine or going to the factory or whatever, it was a working mentality. And I just think that I was recently listening to a podcast on Sir Alex Ferguson and his, upbringing in the shipyards, and then working his way through, I think he was at St. Mirren and then Aberdeen and then going to Manchester United. And he never forgot his standards as he went through. And obviously there's a massive difference between Aberdeen and Manchester United. But as you can see now with Manchester United and the way they are, that the standards are not there. So it was institutional. If you played from Ferguson, you knew what he expected. So I like that kind of, hey, we've got standards. Parents know it. The players know it. It doesn't really need to be put in a list of guidelines. Maybe you use that to support you, but you come into my session, you come into our session, this is what's expected of you.
Brilliant. You mentioned there about the coach kind of having the freedom to, if it goes off track, adapt, don't panic. When you go as a leader and you go for a night, you say, I'm going to watch sessions from 6 to 9 or whatever it is, and you're going to observe for the night. What type of behaviors or what standard approach are you looking across? There's not like we're all doing this or we're all doing that, but what is it like in the environment that you're kind of looking from an energy standpoint?
The first and most important thing you said, you use the word energy, right? There's got to be an energy. If you're asking your players to give you something, you got to give them it initially. You got to set the tone of the session. I want it to be fast paced, being able to move quickly, not a lot of standing around. The attention span's 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Not giving out too much information, right? Recognizing that maybe you should go in the session with 3 learning goals, and most kids will probably get one of them if you're lucky, right? And look, if you're seeing people on a regular basis, it's consistency from one session to the next. So what I would always do, and what I ask of our coaches, is have a seasonal goal, and within that seasonal goal, have some building blocks, but always be consistent with that goal through each session, right? Don't try to do 20 different things in a season. So when I go to those sessions, I'm looking for that, and really that connection between the coach and the player. How do they respond to the coach? How does the coach respond to them? What are they doing when the coach has got his back to them? How's the coach able to deal with adversity in the session? There's a lot of emphasis, I feel, on structure. I haven't seen many games, if any, that are structured, right? So a loose structure though, right? Because you can't have your kids just running all over the field. But that's what I'm looking for when I go. And I think the energy of the coach is the most important thing.
Let's just say you've watched me on a Tuesday night and my energy's not at it. And what way do you go about the feedback process, I guess, for coaches? Is it more formal? Do you check it every so often, or would you meet with me the next morning, or how would you navigate around that?
Well, it depends in what capacity I'm there, right? So when I was purely a staff development person, had 70 coaches. It was me and 3 others that would go around, and it was an official process, an evaluation process. So you'd set up a meeting afterwards. Hey, Gary, how did you feel the session went? What were your takeaways from it? What were you thinking when you did this? And more just a conversation. If I go there now, I was an ECNL director for a while. Now, as a general manager, executive director, it's more a discussion in the moment. Hey, what's going on? What you doing here? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Hey, I love what you're doing. Maybe if you just change the size, it's just little kind of, hey, I'd like to help you get better. I'm not here to teach you how to coach. That's not my responsibility. You're here because we believe you can coach. Hey, it's just something I've seen. And by the way, I love it when people come to me and do the same thing. Like if you're coaching and you think you know it all, you've stopped learning and you're gonna get stale. And so like I remember doing a session indoors one winter, and I was working on the centre forward peeling off the centre back and then the through ball. So it was a little combination, centre forward peels off, through ball. And I was teaching them how to peel. And one of the coaches in the club who was a little bit younger and kind of new to the club just came over and went, "You thought about doing the movement this way?" And he showed me. I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant. That's much better than the way I'm showing them." And so I think that openness to both ways. Hey, have you thought about doing this? Well, I've thought about doing that, Jordan, but then this, oh, yeah. All right, cool. You know, it's a two-way thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's really, really interesting. We talking about how coaching, like a coaching preference. I loved it when that happens to me, or when it happened to me. I think coaches today, again, this is something we've talked about on our collaboration calls with coaches. Is going in. I would have thought before would a standardized approach to even session design would have been really would have been successful or implemented them. But then you talk to people and they're like, yeah, but then your coaches lose the autonomy of designing the session and doing what they, and you think, oh yeah, actually, I didn't even think of that there.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was teaching and coaching in England, more teaching, so I'll reference teaching. I think they're the same. I think coach is a teacher, right? When I was teaching in England, in a public school system, the standards of the GCSEs, the standards of the A levels, it was all standardized, right? And Ofsted would come in, they'd inspect, you got to do this, this, this. I remember that was coming in when I was going through high school. And then when I was going into teaching, there was still teachers around that were like 20, 25 years into the teaching. And they just felt like it took away their ability to adapt to the classroom. And then I went into private education over in America here, and they didn't even have a curriculum. They were just basically like, well, there's a basic standard of what you need to teach, but we trust that you know the topic and you're going to figure out how to teach it the best way you can. I think there's a happy medium. I think you've got to guide people a little bit, right? But just like we talk about our players, if we standardize it, I'll give you an example, Gary. I've been in many staff development sessions where somebody gets up there and they use like 100 PowerPoint slides, and there's all this information on the PowerPoint slide. I'm trying to listen to what they're telling me. I'm trying to read the slide, and they're telling you that you've got to keep people engaged, but they can't do it themselves. And I feel that's the same when we come to helping our coaches. If I'm telling you exactly what I need you to do in exactly the right way I need you to do it, am I actually helping you grow? So I think we have that kind of need to have, hey, these are our standards. These are our expectations from our sessions. We expect our kids to be engaged. We expect them all to have a ball for large periods of the session. We expect you to give them clear instruction. We expect to give good positive feedback. We expect you to correct when you need to, but we don't expect it to look a certain way, because it's just not probably helping them grow as coaches.
It's got to be refreshing to work as a coach to kind of have that permission almost to not have to replicate the session next to you in every shape and form. I would imagine.
It was something that took me a while to get used to because I'd been in that environment, and the FA was that way, right? Solid 4-4-2, play the ball in the channel. I doubt if you went and looked at Pep's session, you'd be able to pick it out what's going on, right? I remember doing my Premier Diploma when it used to be the
NSCAA.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite course. It was basically, let's talk about tactics and let's look at different ways. And they brought Anson Dorrance in to talk about his 4-3-3. And I remember there was a guy that came in and I don't remember his name. It's such a long time ago, Gary. I mean, I'm very young, but this was a long time ago. And he was talking about, like, if you watch a game, if you know what the formation is and how what their philosophy is, and that they're not doing a good job of playing the game because it's too obvious. You know, you're supposed to disguise it. You go watch a game, and what people will say, well, they're playing a 4-3-3, but are they? Or is it a 4-3-3 when they kick off? Is it a 4-3-3 when they're defending? Like, so I feel like if that's the way we want our coaches to think, we have to give them the freedom to kind of experiment and play around, right? And I find that every coach brings something different, so it's really good to let them have some freedom because you learn more from them at the same time. Then,
How challenging is it? Challenging to have that culture, because I imagine that's again a little bit different. You're also in a super competitive area of the country where,
yeah,
sure, it's easier to use the model next door to you, literally, of another club. But is there, how have you been able to kind of build that unique culture specific to you guys? And has that been challenging at all?
I think you have to find the right people, and that is challenging, right? That's challenging. Dominic Bucci, who was our DOC, I saw him, what now? Show my age, 25 years ago or so, doing his technical work. And I was just fascinated by his methodology and the way he went about it and the sort of chaotic nature, but the controlled chaotic nature of what he was teaching them. It wasn't cookie cutter. It wasn't, you know, dribble around a cone. It was kind of a freedom within the structure. You know, if you're working on technical stuff, a lot of people are, it's head down, it's in a small space, it's irrelevant to the game. Oh yeah, you can teach kids to love touching the ball, but are they going to be able to advance that? So you saw that, and him and I have kind of hit it off in that way, and we've worked together for so long now. There's just a probably our only principle that we both are exactly the same on is how we press everything. And I told you I've been pressing into this conversation, by the way. But that's it. Like, we don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything else, and that's okay, you know, because the one thing that we have in common with the press is high intensity, and the way we coach is high intensity, the way we train is high intensity. And I think finding the right people that you can trust, that you know can do a good job, that you recognize you can let go with your teams, I think is significantly important. And the longer they're with you, the more that trust grows and the more they can bring in. So what we've done is we've really got on a staff around us that are experienced. We've got some young staff in, and we build them through, and we have them come to our training, or we have them come to events. Like, one of the first things we did when we hired our youth director, who's now our ECNL director, he's worked up from with the youngest, and now he's our ECNL director. First thing we did was take him to Seattle to the ECNL playoffs and say, come and have a look. Just come and see what that level looks like. Because you can't work with the 8, 9, 10-year-olds if you don't know what they should look like when they're 16, 17, 18. So that's been our big thing as well, trying to just expose our coaches to what do we want our players to look like when they graduate. Because we can't ask you to work with the kids at the beginning if you don't know where they're going. So it's been that. It's been like, find the right people. Trust has to be there both ways. Help develop your younger coaches, get them around the other sessions, sharing of information, and really just kind of saying, listen, go out and be you. And there's some guidelines, but we want you to go out and just do a good job.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating, that relationship piece that you said. Well, with all that there, I think also when it comes to getting staff in, and you normally gravitate towards your own personality and your own, so that's where it's fascinating where you said, you know what, yeah, we have one big strength that we agree on, but we'll agree on 100, disagree on 100 other things. But there's got to be great power in that there as well, because that, again, more variety, more depth, bandwidth of conversation, more experiences.
Yeah, I think what we're intrinsically tied by with most of our coaches is a desire to win. And I know you've got that later on, but I just hate to lose, right? So when I was younger, you take a lot from your own personal experience, right? So when I was younger, playing, I felt like I had to do everything. Like I was center mid, I need to do everything. I need to tackle, I need to head, I need to score goals, I need to defend, I need to pass. And as you grow up, you realize as a player, and this is what we try to instill in our players, is no, I need to use the team around me to make me better. And I also need to make them better. And that's kind of the philosophy we go into with the coaching piece, right? Like if I have 11 players on the field that are all the same player, I'm never winning. If I have 11 coaches that are all the same kind of coach, our kids are never developing. You need that coach that's going to be a little harder on you and a little push you. You need that coach that's going to put an arm around your shoulder. You just need those different strategies to give your kids a better experience overall. And you also need it just to be a better as an individual coach yourself. You don't want people that are just going to say yes to you. Respectfully. You don't want that person that's belligerent either, but you don't want somebody who's just going to be, yeah, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do it? All right, I'm doing it. I'm trying to please you. You're not trying to please me, right? You're trying to be the best you can be and please your players. So I think that's what's really important with that.
Yeah, staying on that with those players, that have cracked through, and obviously there's quite a few that have gone on to the professional level, the international level, the World Cup level, Olympics level.
Yeah.
Is there any, you talked about your desire to win there, and is there anything in different players, different profiles, different positions? Is there any consistencies with how they approach the game or how they approach their development?
Yeah, I mean, it's that will to drive forward. I mean, I know that's a cliche. There's always a lot of truth behind cliches, though, right?
Yeah.
I remember my first girls team, U8. I had no interest in being a girls coach. I was a boys coach, and I taught boys phys ed and history in England, and I had Julia Ashley and Kayla Jennings when they were 7 years old on that team. Julia obviously went off, played for UNC, and went in the pros. Kayla played at Boston College, and that team just became phenomenal by the end of the time. But I saw it in them as 7-year-olds. I know it sounds kind of far-fetched to some people, but I did. They were different. Kayla wouldn't train with you if you were new to our team until you'd proven yourself over a couple of weeks that you were good enough to be with our team. I mean, that's some people are like, well, that's a bit much. Well, no, it wasn't disrespectful. It wasn't mean. It was just like, nah, you're coming into our team. I need to see. And you see that like Hannah Kerner that went over to play for Celtic, Sydney Schneider that's, played for Jamaica in the World Cup. There was just this insatiable desire to be successful. But with it all, none of it was at the behest of the team. Like they fit, and I got, thoughts about players that I kind of enjoyed watching when I was a kid and playing around, and they always recognize the importance of the team and everything they had about them to drive themselves individually also was at the benefit of the team. And I can't think of one player that went on to the highest level. Like Sam Coffey is just Like, that kid could outwork anybody. You know, very talented, never would take that away from a wonderful athlete, but would outwork everybody. So you see that across the board. And honestly, I don't think, I think that we've helped. You can't say that they came through your club and you didn't help them. That would be insane. But they're the easiest kids to coach because you're just guiding them. You're not going to push them. I'll tell you, Julia actually used to call me up if I cancelled practice and ask me why it was cancelled. I'd be like, Julia, it's like 6 inches of rain outside. Well, we could still go. We could still train. And it makes you better as a coach. You're like, all right, well, you know, training needs to be better then. I don't want that kid yelling at me when training's not good enough. And so I think that's the commonality, right? Is that these kids just buy in and they make you and your club better by driving it. And it's something, Gary, that I always try to say to my players, and I sometimes drop off that consistency, you know, but in my mind, I get back to it. You're driving the practice, not me. Like, the energy of the practice is down to you as players. I'll push you, I'll prod you, but at the end of it, if you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter how much I say, you're not going to do it. And so we give, that's one of the things I probably should have said at the beginning, we give our players ownership over the practices. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to push you, but ultimately you run the practice. Like, get at each other, get going, let's go. And so those kind of players that we talked about that have made it to the next level, they really drove it. They drove the standards of everything.
Staying on that there with the mentality piece on winning, because again, that sometimes is development versus winning, but what you've done there is articulated really clearly how development goes with winning. I guess, again, collectively as well, those players experiencing success are in their careers, but they also experience success with titles and championships at MatchFit. How much do you communicate with winning parents? Do you have that conversation with them, coaches, expectations?
It's as you know, it's a bit of a loaded question, right? It's a very, very fine line, because there's especially now with social media, there's a need for instant gratification, right? And one thing that I detest more than anything is ranking teams, ranking players. I'm not going to name the organizations that wind me up about it, but like, how can you subjectively rank teenage players, right? What's your metric? I don't mind objectivity, right? Like, if you're a track athlete and you can run in a certain time, it's pretty simple. We can rank you, right? But the game's such a difference of opinions. Yeah, you know who a good player is and who a player that's a little bit below that level is, but it's so subjective. And that's the environment we live in. So now everybody's following. Oh, look at your ranking here. Look at your wins and losses. And I use this story a lot when I talk to our families about how I went to watch England-Germany U15 when I was like 13 years old. U15 national team at Wembley, England-Germany. 5-6 years later, I looked at the program, and only one player from both teams was a professional player.
Michael Owen.
Michael Owen.
Was it?
Yeah. So the thing is like, what are we doing? You know, you test a kid at 8 years old, you don't know academically what they're going to be like at 18. But we put it into a sporting environment, and winning's the only measure of success. We all know it's a part of it, right? But you see those kids. I remember there was a kid, my twins are terrible soccer players, but when they were little, playing rec town soccer, there was one kid that was like 3 inches taller that would score 6 goals a game. And everybody's like, oh, look how good that player is. Like, and I said at the time, like, yeah, but like, she's bigger than everyone else. Like, wait until everybody catches up, and then we'll see what you like. And I think if you put an emphasis on winning, you circumnavigate so many other things. But it's hard because you're also dealing with, well, if you don't win, well, you're not very good. The coach isn't good. The club's not very good. The team's not very good. So you're trying to find people with an even-keeled mindset. And if there's that family that are putting winning above all else and you feel like it's negating what you're trying to do, then you let that family go. And it doesn't matter how good the player is. It's about a team mentality. It's about a single mindset that this is our path. You don't want to be on it, we'll try to help you. We'll try to talk to you about it. But ultimately, you're going to make a decision one way or the other anyway. Good luck, because it's not about the kid at that point. It's usually about the parent. But what we're doing is, look, we care for you as a player. We're fortunate as well, Gary, right? Like, I say this to all our young coaches. If I have a conversation with a parent, I have so much anecdotally I can talk about what we've done, that you can get a bit more buy-in. Oh, I've seen, yeah, I know you had that player. We know you did this. We know. So, yes, some of them might still turn off to you, but it's a lot easier to lose when you've done it in the past, right? That's why young coaches are really struggling to make it in the game, right? Because your Premier League, you lose, you're out, right? So it's a fine line, but we're not gonna bow down our principles for that. I'm not gonna do it.
Love it. Let's talk about the recent partnership with Gotham and the opportunities that will create for not even the next generation, this generation of player.
I think it's a fantastic step that they're making as a club. I think the connectivity, regardless of the opportunity, let's take that piece out. It's an important piece, but the connectivity between the club, the Gotham and our club is huge, right? It's empowering younger players to feel connected, especially in the female game where that's probably the biggest bridge. But the relationship's really significant for us because we have players that do want to play beyond college. And we've been fortunate. We've had quite a few, but it's not the norm, right, to play beyond college as a female athlete. And it's not the norm as a male athlete, but it's certainly significantly less normal for a female athlete. So they're now given an opportunity to see what that environment looks like. You know, I'll never forget Alana Cook went to her. Alana was obviously a phenomenal player, but she went to her first national team camp and came back and was like, I got to get better. Because she saw what that next level was looking like. And a lot of young female players don't get to see that. So just being around that, regardless of where they end up, I think is hugely important. The connection's great because we're right there. You know, we're 12 miles away from New York City. We've got that Yale played for Dominic. She was one of the first young players I met when I came over. I didn't coach her, but I was around her because she was in Montclair where I was. So her being the general manager is a nice connection. And I just think that it's the way the game needs to go, is that for there to be a pathway to the pros, a real one though, not like, well, you're just a really good player, you're going to get signed, but like, let's have 20, 30 kids in a center of excellence, for one of the better phrase, right? Be around each other, understand standards, you know, what's it like to be a pro? For me, when I was a player, I played with a young man called Adrian Moses, which nobody listening to this will ever probably have heard of. He ended up playing for Barnsley. He played in the Premier League for Barnsley, but I never forget like when he got signed as a 16-year-old and I didn't. 2 years later, we just went and had a pickup game, and he was miles beyond where he was when we were 16 because he played every day and he was around it every day and he understood the environment. So I think for these kids, well, that's what we had growing up, right? We were connected to the clubs. So I think for these girls to be connected and to see what does it really take? Because everybody can tell you I want to be a pro, but like, what does it really take? And what sacrifices do I have to make? So as much as it's great for the club, great partnership, great advertisement, it's the connectivity for the players to that level, I think, is the most important thing.
Fantastic. All right, let's finish up with some personal questions. First up, advice. You've a lot of leaders around the surf community will be looking at this at different stages of their club growth and looking at building similar type of culture, similar type of identity, similar type of success. If they're on the early stages of that there, Jordan, what's your advice for them?
I would say that you've got to be true to what you believe in. It's like you're making, a ceramic piece of work or whatever. You're molding it a little bit, right? But you know what you want it to look like. You just have to move around and change it a little bit, but you got to stay true to your value, right? It's this job, this industry has a way of really putting you down. We live emotively, right? I mean, we're all like it as fans. If Leeds lose a game, I'm off for a couple of days. If Leeds win a game, I'm joyous for a couple of days. And we actually work in that environment, right? So you don't take anything personally. Stick to your value. Surround yourself with good people you trust, people you value. I think those are the most important things. And don't listen to the noise because there's going to be plenty of people who want to put you down.
Brilliant. Super advice, that. Super. All right, here comes the fun stuff.
Oh.
What was your motivation to coach?
I wasn't good enough as a player. I mean, let's be honest. We all like to pretend we were good, but what if we were good? Would we be here? No. Honestly, from that family, my grandfather was a coach and a teacher. My dad was a coach and a teacher. When I didn't make it, I did look at doing something else, like going in to be a lawyer or whatever. And I took a year to think about it. I was like, nah, I want to do something I really love. I didn't know if I'd be any good at it. And some people would say I'm not, but I just wanted to do and be around the game. I know it, again, it's said everywhere. I mean, but I did. I just wanted to be around the game. This is what I love. What's the best way I can be around it? I can be involved in it as a coach. I was scared to death when I was in Long Island as a 21-year-old working for a guy called Gary Buck. But I've loved it. I mean, 29 years later and I'm still doing it.
Yeah, quality. Well, who are some of your biggest influences there? Those early ages, those.
Well, my dad's my biggest influence. I grew up, basically went to watch him play every week, and then watch him coach, watch him working at Forest and Leeds and Doncaster, where I'm from, and just watching him and how he handles things with humor Tough, but with humor. Playing for him was hard, very hard. But he got the best out of his players, and he knew how to motivate. He was tactically astute. I tell him now he just moans too much, but everything's wrong in the world now, and that's what I'm becoming. It's like that not Geico commercial, whatever that insurance commercial is, right? But that was my biggest influence because it's what he did. I lived around it. I grew up around it. Outside of that, I just take, Gary Book, when I worked in Long Island, was a phenomenal coach. Learned a lot from him. But, my dad has got to be, it's my values that he instilled in me. And I still look to him if I've had a bad day or a good day for that, either good job, son, or get your head up and go on with it,
Is there a team, past or present, that you like to build your playing style upon?
I tell you, it's the Leeds team of the 70s. You'd be like, wait, you're just going to kick everyone? I don't, to be honest with you. I don't. I am mesmerized by what Bielsa did with Leeds. Mesmerized by it. But it's not like I go, all right, that's what I have to do. Because I feel like if you do that, you're just changing your identity every 2 minutes. Yeah. Right? I would say that I look for ideas in a lot of areas. Like, I'm not opposed to going long. I'm not opposed to playing out of the back. I don't have a particular set of ideas that I'm going to stick with. But if I look at a certain intensity, it would be, the Leeds teams of Gary Speed and Gordon Strachan. Man United's Brian Robson and Remy Moses and Ray Wilkins. Tottenham's Glenn Hoddle. And I know those are the olden days. I mean, Roy Keane. Just people that were winners. Tony Adams. Just those are things. Like, there's players I admire for the ability that they have. And they have that work rate as well, right? It's not just ability, but I'm looking for, how are we successful? Like, what is it that it takes? What's that DNA? And it's not necessarily a style, it's a commitment to the style, right? And I love Pep. I mean, I'm playing my way. I'm going to go spend 300 million to play it, but I'm playing my way, right? And you got to admire that, right? And try to take bits out of him, but you're not going to replicate what he can do because you don't have the resources. So for me, I guess, again, it's close. You're pretty much the same kind of coach as you were as a player, right? And for me, it's that mentality, that desire to win, to defend. I love defending. I think it's so underrated. If you've got good defensive team, I mean, what is it right now? I think it's Burnley haven't conceded a goal since mid-December in the Championship. That's fascinating for me.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I tell you something that's interesting, Gary, is I'm not a big basketball fan per se. Like, I like the Knicks. I'll watch some college basketball. I've learned most from watching a basketball coach at the school I taught at, and the way he has his teams defend. Just phenomenal. Like, the press, the way they press, trying to take away, basically making the other team one-dimensional. So I find other sports as well. If you watch Tim Thibodeau with the Knicks right now, he's got a defensive mentality. His best players are playing as many minutes as they need to play to win the game. He's not putting them on the bench to rest. Like, it's like the whole thing. Like, do you rest players for the FA Cup? And then, no, play your best team. Let's go. Right? So I like that. It's not just, I like the gritty, let's go find a way to win mentality.
All right, favorite question here. Favorite player, past or present, that inspires you in this game?
Well, you put the inspires bit because favorite player would have to be. I mean, Paul Gascoigne.
So you're gonna say Cantale?
No. We let him go too cheaply. Paul Gascoigne was just. But I mean, the thing is for me, right? You grow up, Brian Robson. I wore number 7 because of Brian Robson.
Oh, wow.
Even as a Leeds fan, Brian Robson, England captain, Captain Marvel. I always wore number 7 because of him. I loved Glenn Hoddle. Glenn Hoddle would have played 150 games if he was French for his national team. But Gascoigne just had everything and did everything. And yeah, people say, well, he threw his career away in the FA Cup final and he did this and that. Yeah, he did. He was a flawed genius, right? But he was a genius. And the thing about him is he had probably wanted to win too much, right? He could have taken it down 10% and still been the best player on the field by a million miles. So he always inspires me to this day. I don't know if there's a modern, I mean, basketball is Kobe. Kobe Bryant was phenomenal. Tom Brady in football, you got to admire what he did. So I look across, but if I'm going football only, it's Paul Gascoigne.
Love it. I was a big Gaza fan myself. All right, last one. What do MatchFit do better than anyone else?
I think we do well in adapting to our environment and dealing with the pressure of being in a very high demand market. I think we've done a really good job of changing, like a bit like a chameleon. You know, we didn't go in the DA, even if we could have. We stuck true to what we thought our principles were, which is high school soccer is important in this area, and we're very loyal to what we do and very true to our principles. So I would say that that's the biggest thing. Is it better than everybody else? I couldn't speak to that because there's a lot of clubs in the country. But if I was to be asked, what could you come in and help us with in our club from your experience, I'd say the ability to stick true to what we've had, but adapt to what we need to adapt to.
Fantastic. Nice way to finish it. Common theme. Adapt, thrive, survive, succeed. This has been great, Jordan. I guess the first one we've done where trying to get an insight into club and culture and people. And I've loved it. I'm now kicking myself. I need to do more of these. Absolutely brilliant. You've set a top standard so far. I appreciate it.
Well, it's good. If I'm one of one and I'm at the top, then I've done all right, right?
The leaderboard. That's subjective leaderboard. You're at the top.
It's like when you were younger and you went and played Pac-Man and you're at the top, and then an hour later you're like 9. Like, what happened? There's only 8 people played it. Am I at number 9? Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. It's you know what? Doing things like this as well, though, it gets you to kind of pause and reflect, right? And I felt myself doing that as we were chatting, which was great. It was really, really useful for me as well.
Brilliant. We'll do it again. Thank you, Jordan.
No problem, man. Thank you.